Hey everyone, Gaijin here. Not too long ago, Gameloft approached me and asked if I would talk about one of their games. Out of the list, there was one in particular that caught my attention, Rival Knights. An interesting little free-to-play game. You take on the role of an up-and-coming knight, making your way through other nobles to reach ultimate victory. You have stats which alter your performance, but the gameplay aspect involves good timing and good precision. And the more I saw this game, the more I realized there really hasn't been a game focused solely on jousting mechanics. I mean, yeah, we had Joust, but that was about space knights on space ostriches in space. And the more I thought about that, the more I wondered just how close Rival Knights was getting to capturing the essence of what made jousting in the Middle Ages. I mean, it looks pretty authentic in its presentation, not to mention this is actually a really good-looking iOS game. But digging into the details, I think my research about this simple little game may surprise you. First off, let's talk about equipment and stats. As stated, this game focuses a lot on stats, which are determined by your lance, armor, helmet, and horse, all the while not going overweight. Let's start with the lance. Imagine trying to carry a 14-foot log of wood in one hand while trying to control a horse while wearing 50 pounds of full-plate armor. That is how the jousting knight do. Not an easy task. The lance had to be perfectly fitted for the knight in order to make pinpoint strikes while riding. Having the lance reflect a primary stat makes all the sense of the world comparatively, since it was the end-all be-all for the knight. The armor? Well, that's a given. Knights needed the best armor, obviously, to keep themselves safe, but also to shrug off blows. However, the isolation of the helmet may seem like a strange one, but in reality makes a lot of sense. The strange shapes on different helmets that you see were not only there to give the knight a unique look, but also to shrug off any blows that would befall his head. These odd points and curves on a knight's helmet were used to deflect blows and protect the head from any additional injury. Point goes to Rival Knights for subtly representing the importance of the helmet shape. Lastly is the horse, and really, this is likely the most critical. Knights had to be as strong and agile as possible in order to make pinpoint target hits in 50 pounds of full-plate armor. Horses had to do the same with their master on their back, his armor, his lance, and any additional practical or decorative armor that the horse wore. I'd imagine a lot of these horses would have gone on strike given the chance, which is why having your horse be an independently upgraded speed stat makes so much sense from a historical view. Your horse, like every other piece of equipment that the knight used, had to be top of the line, the best engineered, and likely the most expensive. Which brings me to the next big point about this game. I've heard a lot of people complain online that a major fault of this game comes from the constant need to upgrade your equipment in order to advance in the core game. To be fair, if Rival Knights is going for any realistic representation of jousting, that's kinda how it was. A knight not only had to have his own armor and horse in order to joust, the armor had to be top-notch and the horse bred to be a powerhouse in order to get anywhere in the world of jousting. While of course honor was at stake for these knights, money was even more so. And think about this. In real jousting, the winner was usually given the horse or armor of the loser. Could you imagine that in-game? You play online, you do great, but after one little loss, you lose that super expensive horse or armor and have to start back at square one? Trust me, the money factor could have been a lot worse. Lastly, let's quickly talk about personal aesthetics and pride. Knights of ye old may have performed in jousting for the sake of practicing chivalry and warrior's code, but let's be honest here. The idea behind it was recognition. A strong performance and appearance noted the knight's nobility publicly. For example, I bet you didn't know those pointy boots implied high status. But from the helm to the boots, even to the horse, physical appearance was everything. Not to mention the many knights that tried to woo women by wearing their tokens during a tournament. Now look at Rival Knights. There really isn't a main enemy here. It's just going through the ranks of noblemen, and while that may seem minor, the objective stacks up well against history. The player's banner is also a very important aspect of the game, as it not only grants you different bonuses, but the game stresses personalization more than any iOS game that I've seen. Again, a small note, but one that really did matter in jousting's history. I guess the point I want to make here is that even though iOS games like Rival Knights are simplistic in nature, it doesn't always mean that the inspiration drawn from them is simple or shallow. Sometimes there's a lot to learn about a game's subtle inspirations when you look at it hard enough, and that's what got me curious about this game. Anyway though, that's all the time I have for this episode. If there are any other neat little references I may have neglected, let us know in the comments. I know there's quite a bit more that I could have discussed. Next time though, I hope to dive headfirst into some cultural inspirations of one of gaming's most treasured gems. But until then, this is Gaijin signing out.